Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live here on the International Public Radio, right on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM from beautiful New Orleans. This evening's segment is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee. Thank you, Folgers. These two redheads love you guys a whole bunch.
We love the red packaging too, just saying.
There we go. So yeah, that right there. In order to participate in tonight's show, please head on over to the International Public Radio or UFO Paranormal Radio Network YouTube pages and subscribe, of course. I see Amelia's already laid down the ground rules. If you want to have your comments addressed immediately or there's something you need her to write down, that's the only way you're going to do it. Tag her. We're also broadcasting on 6 other platforms, being Twitch and Twitter, and I think 3 of the networks, Facebook, I guess, or pages. But we can't respond to you in there. But we can, however, see your comments here. Tonight, we welcome back Dr. Elliott Van Dusen. He's so much fun. And he's going to be discussing his current research into parapsychology and the paranormal, of course. And he might even throw in a case or two and touch on some of the stuff that he's talked about before with his Ghost Project Canada, etc. So he's just really a lot of fun. And I know we're going to have a good time. So settle yourselves on in, have a cup of Folgers, and let's get the show on the road. So, Bubbles, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Yay! It's like
I know.
This makes us the happiest. We can't tell you enough.
Mean a lot to us.
Yes.
I know. We've been locked down for a while.
4 months.
This is a big deal.
4 months.
Yes.
Like
this is a
nothing.
big deal. Nails,
4 months, nothing, but
big deal.
Yeah. It's a big deal. Nails are a big deal. I used to be a hairdresser, so for me, the hair color is not a big deal. As you've noticed, that it's changed through lockdown, and I've even had people ask me, oh, "Who did your hair? Did you go?" I'm like, "Oh my god, I used to do hair." So yeah, I took the leap and did it myself because 4 months is a long time when you got gray. Just saying. But
I'm fortunate. That's not a problem for me.
You're very lucky, and I've seen your dad.
Together.
I've seen your dad. I don't think that's ever going to be a problem for you. So, no, he's got a head of hair on him, and it's dark, and I'm just like, wow.
I got lots of hair.
Very genetic, but both sides of my family gray. So we were all premature gray at a young age. Actually, I used to have to go back in time at photos when I was younger to remember what color my hair really was. So that's how often I've changed it. Well, when you work in hair, you're pretty much a guinea pig for any new product that comes in, right? So when you're me, I don't mind.
Yeah.
I have fun with it. Hello, Wayne.
Wayne is sicky.
Oh no, Wayne. Feel better. Feel better. Help. Feel better. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, keep your freaking plague away from me, whatever it is. I think he thinks it's heat stroke. I'm like, it's a plague. He goes, it's heat stroke.
It was cold today.
Okay, whatever.
It was cold. Just saying it was cold. I know. It's been cold. I think
it's a delayed reaction.
Yesterday I went out to do my nails yesterday, and I went out in the morning, and it was bloody warm. And I came back, and it was October. What the F?
I know. It's all screwed up. And today we've got like rolling thunderstorms everywhere all day.
So beautiful.
Everywhere. I love that stuff, but I don't like the 50 millimeters of rain because that's a lot of freaking rain. And it's cold.
My pool is overflowing.
I know.
Overflowing.
It's bad. So Mother Nature needs to make up her stinking mind as to what she wants to do.
Figure out
enough is enough.
What season we're actually in. Although I think those are just the bits and bites of this storm that's hitting the East Coast. So
I think so too. So thanks, guys. We love you anyway. So tonight, did you want to give a quick bio
I'm going to do a quick bio since we've had Dr. Van Dusen on before, and he is Canadian. Just saying, he's a former RCMP officer of 15 years service, retiring with his rank of corporal. He currently serves as the Director of Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation and has earned a diploma in parapsychology. So please help us welcome Dr. Elliott Van Dusen back to our show. Yay!
He's in. There he is.
Hello.
So
How's
good
it going?
to see you. It's
How are
freezing here. How are you?
Today wasn't too bad. It was actually pretty decent today.
Oh, no rain
here.
Is it
No,
just us? Is it just Ontario?
we're supposed to get a tropical storm tomorrow night, so we'll have lots of rain tomorrow.
That's us. Yeah,
that's what
it's
we've
everywhere.
had the past 2 days. It was
terrible.
I left the house yesterday, no word of a lie. It was bloody hot. 2.5 hours later, I come out, I'm talking to the owner of the salon, and she's like, holy crap, because she's in shorts. And we're both sitting there with our teeth chattering. I go, what the hell happened?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so windy. There was no way my little dog could go out because he'd just end up like Toto, you know. It's like,
whatever.
wow.
Your dog just wants to spend the day being pushed around the stroller in the house. Okay?
He does.
I want your dog's life. Right?
Well, he's 13. I told you when I die, I want to come back as Versace with me as his owner.
Yeah, let's figure that one out.
I want to come back as that. But, you know,
how are you? What have you been up to?
I'm doing great.
That's funny. Sorry.
No. I'm doing great. Keeping busy. Still working on my next book, more supernatural encounters from law enforcement. Still getting the odd story trickling in from that.
Very cool.
Still working on Ghost Project Canada, which is an ongoing phenomenological project being done by Darrell Walsh and myself. It's a qualitative study where we're collecting all stories of the supernatural, so it doesn't have to just do with parapsychology. It could be UFOs, cryptozoology, whatever. Going around collecting all those stories, and eventually we want to put them into a database. And kind of like a online mapping system. So if you're interested in, haunted locations in London, Ontario, you can come to our website and see what locations there are. Or if you're in BC and you're interested in UFO sightings, we'll have UFO data in there. So Darrell ran an ad on Facebook probably a month or so ago. We got a few people responding with some stories about UFOs and ghosts and stuff. So it's been pretty busy.
Oh, that's excellent. So, a website that's got the full gambit, basically.
Yeah. So my co-founder of Paranormal Phenomena Research Investigation, Spencer Collier, is a CEO of a web development company. So he's in the process of, Oh, it's very
that really helps.
So he's in the process of designing with his team a database for us where we can go on. Actually, people can come visit the website and input their story, and then it would be assigned to an investigator from PPRI to kind of go through and sort. And then there will also be a members only section where we can go in, and any cases that we work on or anything like that, we can input the data as well. And then that way it allows us to redact anything for confidentiality reasons such as like people's phone numbers or names or specific house addresses, anything like that. So it'll be really slick once it's up and running. It obviously just takes a lot of time. We're nonprofit.
It's a big build. This isn't just a small venture. It's a big build to put all that information. A work in progress that just keeps, it's just never ending. It gets continuously added to, right?
Definitely.
I just noticed the photograph behind him, the painting behind him.
Oh yes.
I'm like, what the?
Yes, I think the last time I was on your show, I was in Cape Breton, so I was in the father-in-law's office. So I'm now in my own office with Malik in the back and a few haunted objects in the corner of the room here. So
I have to ask, did you paint that or did you buy it?
No, actually, I got it off of. I think it was eBay, and it was somebody from the UK that produced like a high quality kind of canvas print.
Yeah.
Someone should do that for paint night in October. Seriously, they'd have people like crazy.
Oh yeah.
They did that for the paint night, painting and wine. I'm usually there more for the wine though, but that is a great print. That is, painting. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it. And the way you're situated looks like she's cradling you. Just saying.
Oh yeah. She's always watching over me as I'm doing my parapsychological work.
Right.
Oh my God.
So let's get started with said parapsychological work. So what have you been working on? I know you're always knee deep in something aside from the book. Why don't you tell everybody? For anybody who missed you on like the show the first time, maybe we can just recap a little bit of what it is you actually do.
Yeah, sure. So, as you guys said, I'm director of paranormal phenomena research and investigation. We are registered with the Nova Scotia Registry Joint Stocks, and we also just got incorporated not too long ago through the Not-for-Profit Corporations Act in Canada. So that covers us.
That is not an easy feat in this industry.
No, that covers us Canada-wide. And then we just resubmitted bylaws to Nova Scotia Registry Joint Stocks. And once those are approved, my chief financial officer, Sarah Crawley, has all the paperwork done up for us to become a charity. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the Survival Research Institute out in British Columbia, but
have not.
They actually managed to get charity status from the Canadian government. So I reached out to them, talked to their executive director, and we did up all the paperwork that's involved with it. So I'm not anticipating any problems. If there is, it would probably be minor in nature. But then that way, if we can get that charity status, then we can kind of get moving on some of the other projects that we have on the go, such as the Halifax Paranormal Symposium that we plan on holding, which is now. So it was initially going to be 2020, and then COVID hit, and then we were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. So we were thinking 2022. But I'm getting married in 2022, so
it's going to be a big year for you.
Yes, awesome. Yes, thank you.
Congratulations.
So that'll be in August. So we didn't want to like overbook and overwhelm everything. So we're going to do the paranormal symposium in 2023, and by then we'll have hopefully have charity status and all that stuff. So it'll be good. It really helps with getting donors. Because corporations obviously, especially after taking the hit that they have with the economy, don't want to just, hand out money for nothing. They probably want that tax receipt kind of thing. So
yeah, I would say so. Give it some time, and then the site is up and running, and you'll have even more stories and even more books and a wife.
Yes. So, and then other than that, it's been busy collecting stories, but it hasn't been busy investigation wise. I don't know if you guys have found that. Have you guys found that with COVID and stuff, you're not getting called out to actual field investigations?
I haven't really done field investigations for a while, just because of the fact it's a scheduling thing for me. But we were doing them. I think we did a handful of them just like 2019. It was 2019. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely before, because we got just first lockdown was 2020. But I mean, a lot of the work that we do, is remotely, but I consult more than anything else. And my film schedule has just taken me away from being in the field. And it's just, that's pretty much been it for us. But the calls and the emails, I'm up to hearing them.
Yeah. Like, and that's what I find too.
Every day.
People want to, share their stories, but there's just not that demand right now, it seems, for field investigations. But we did get contacted back in March from a lady that was claiming to have either a severe haunting or severe demonic activity. She was outside our area, so we only service Atlantic Canada, which is New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, Labrador, and Nova Scotia. And then we also service the New England area. So all those New England states like Vermont, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. So this was outside our area, but we decided, that she was, she was in parapsychological distress basically, and she was looking for help. And we also have some junior investigators with PPRI. So I figured, you know what, we'll do an inquiry. It's not really an investigation. We'll do an inquiry that'll give some of the investigators, a chance to do some interviews and get their feet wet on how to do, paranormal investigation. So it sounded really like a really interesting case at first.
I like that at first.
Well, and we don't go in and debunk things, but we look at things critically and we try and explain it obviously with natural causes. There's lots of reasons why people see ghosts that we've been able to detect in the laboratory. For example, if you're exposed to high levels of carbon monoxide, they say that it can produce haunting characteristics. If you're exposed to geomagnetic electricity, from the environment, that can cause you to see things. So we always look for stuff. We've actually been in houses and found faulty wiring in people's homes. So you just never know what each case is going to bring. But this one sounded really interesting. It had some auditory sounds of things smashing, which is common in hauntings. It had several witnesses witness a strange amber-colored swirling fog. And upon all the research that we did, the best that we could kind of find in the paranormal sense for that, if it wasn't gas or anything like that. I mean, obviously we weren't there, we weren't able to get a physical sample. This was historic. Was what they call ectomist, and I had always heard of ectoplasm, especially in the spiritualism movement. But there was also apparently ectomist, which is when an apparition is trying to form. It can create this like kind of paranormal fog. I had one of my researchers actually, do some investigations. He found a few cases. There was a pilot that it was a military plane. There was about 6 of them on board. All of a sudden, this strange, mysterious fog appeared in the plane. They checked, for the oxygen leak, and they checked for everything, like depressurization. They couldn't find anything wrong. As they walked through the fog kind of started to retreat and just disappeared. So there has been lots of reports of strange, mysterious fog. And that's kind of what was being reported in this case as well. There was also some materialization and dematerialization occurring with water, which is actually more common in a poltergeist case. So there was a whole kitchen sink kind of syndrome happening here. Unfortunately, some of the evidence that the client had provided us wasn't the best quality. It was a photograph of a photograph. It was a video of a CCTV recording. Which out of everything that was submitted to us, the only thing I found interesting was that there was one CCTV recording, which you could hear it sounded like a raspy male's voice say the client's name. Unfortunately, though, like when you run it through your audio analyzation software, because it's a recording of a recording, you couldn't like, it wasn't really the original recording, so there wasn't really much that we could do with it. I mean, I certainly flagged it as being interesting in the case. But it wasn't evidence or proof of the paranormal. So we had a bunch of our investigators interview a bunch of people. We actually contacted. She had other paranormal investigator teams come and investigate, and we actually reached out to them and spoke to them, and they provided us with their insight. So there was one investigator that claimed that they heard footsteps approach them that they couldn't explain. And again, without us being there and being able to test for leaky, squeaky floorboards or anything like that, you're kind of taking these investigators' word for it. So that's what that investigator experienced. Another investigative team was picking up electromagnetic field radiation from the client themselves, which started based on and based on some of the stuff that we were being told, I kind of felt like that it could be psychokinesis, or it could be kind of a case of a poltergeist, not so much a haunting, and definitely not dynamic. There's nothing to indicate that it was dynamic. But it's funny, as we got into the interviews, we started to kind of pick up on a few different inconsistencies in the story. And so, for example, to give you an example, they experienced an event at the house, and said that one of the individuals was grabbed by the arm by an entity. But then when we interviewed the third party that was not associated to the family there, they actually said that the daughter wasn't there. So there was bits and pieces there that were kind of not really kind of making sense. But there were a few things that did get corroborated, like the fog. There was like 3 different people that had seen this swirling fog and stuff like that. At the end of the day, though, we really went the extra mile on this case. We actually obtained medical information, and through the medical information, we ended up making a determination that this client needs to speak to a clinical parapsychologist, which is a new up and coming trend in the field of parapsychology.
Really?
So what a clinical parapsychologist is, there's very few of them, and some of them don't even go by the title. But for example, what they would be is either a psychologist or a psychiatrist that also study parapsychology, and they actually practice, psychiatry or psychology. So they can actually help clients that are experiencing distress from paranormal phenomena. They can help them work through that, but they can also, diagnose if there's any mental illness or anything like that. And if they're a psychiatrist, then they can actually, prescribe medication depending on the condition, if it can be medicated. So at the end of the day, for this case, there, in my opinion anyway, it seemed that there were a few paranormal events that we couldn't explain, such as the fog, and that's without us being there again, to get a sample of it or actually analyze it. And there was a few different things that the other paranormal investigators who I would trust, that they would be doing the same type of job that I'm doing, a very thorough job, based on their, witness statements, that there was something going on, but it certainly wasn't as bad as the call had come in. And the client's now working with the clinical parapsychologist. So obviously I haven't been updated from that because they follow the same rules that we do. Actually, it was funny when I reached out to the clinical parapsychologist, they asked us for a copy of the case file. And I said, well, I'm going to have to check with the client, obviously, because, we're nonprofit. We do everything for free. We also assure, confidentiality. And so I checked with the client, and they were completely fine with us releasing everything to the clinical parapsychologist. So on the other hand, too, it's not like I could just email him and be like, hey, what's going on kind of thing. I have to trust that he's doing his job and helping the client. But you don't normally see that, I don't think, on your surface level paranormal investigation group. At least I haven't heard of somebody going that distance for a client and actually reaching out. You always hear from clients say that these people came into my house, they tramped around, they had a bunch of fancy equipment, they said the place is haunted, and then they left, or they made the situation worse, and then they left.
All the time. Yeah. I've always made a point of working, because I work in malevolent cases. I've worked with parapsychologists, I've worked with other investigators, and I've always requested a psychological assessment, and a bonus would be 2. and most people have done it, just because if they're on medication, I don't, I always usually ask for permission from the doctor to work with them, and I always get it as long as I make sure that they, that they're not going off the medication. The key always has been if the medication doesn't work, and they've gone through different medications that's not working. So you sometimes have to be that guy and say, well, I'm sorry, but this is, because when I deal with people, it's, they're leaning on their faith. Well, there's if you're looking at I'm just going to throw it out there, like the Catholics, for example, that's a real fine line between a lot of, mental disorders and, oppression, things like that. So they're going to ask for all of that.
Absolutely. And, when you, especially if you're working with malevolent cases, demonic possession mirrors, mental illnesses a lot. In fact, I just took Karen O'Keefe's exorcism and possession course that he was teaching online over in the UK there. And we actually went through 6 real cases, and out of the 5 of them turned out to be medical conditions. One of them was a legitimate case of possession.
No, there you go. I find psychokinesis is a real big one. Poltergeist for sure. But, when you're looking at those type of cases, I'm sure you'll agree, you're looking at people under stress or, addiction, depression, anxiety, so many different mixes of things that can make someone project out that energy. And we see it all the time, like all the time.
That's especially this last year with the pandemic. It's been a frenzy. And then for the cases that are actually malevolent, hauntings and what I call bullies, they're being fed off like crazy because no one can go in there. So, and they're locked down and they're depressed and they're anxious from the pandemic. So yeah, it's really sad.
It is really sad. And I actually had a friend that was telling me he was having a hard time because we went into lockdown for a second time in Nova Scotia. We're in phase 3 now. So, things are fairly open, but, he was finding it very difficult. And that was a person that I personally knew that was having difficult, because for me, I mean, I'm busy. I've got a 1-year-old at home and a fiance that was on mat leave. So, I mean, I had company right here at home, and I was busy doing, paranormal work, but, some people don't have that. And, they were, he was really struggling with it. So, and the other thing is that there's been lots of studies. It's kind of funny because when this case came in, my colleague, actually, Daryl Walsh, he's very skeptical. And he's like, you know what? He's like, this is just too crazy for me. He's like, I'm just going to kind of sit back and you guys handle it, kind of thing. But I kept telling my team, I said, there's lots of studies that have been showing that even people with mental illness can experience paranormal phenomena. And in fact, there was one study that actually found that a lot of people that had psi experiences have some sort of underlying mental illness, whether that's just something as simple as like general anxiety disorder or
I could see that.
Major depressive disorder. Certainly mental health does seem to correlate, to people experiencing paranormal phenomena.
As he's saying that, I'm hearing footsteps going into the other room. I'm like, it's like, okay. I'm like, all right, as you were. So I think, as far as I know, well, I got some marbles left up there, but it's like, all right, footsteps it is.
We're only in stage 2. I don't know if I have any marbles left.
I know. No, that's an interesting study. I think, I don't know, that researchers should bear all that in mind. And you're right. Because I mean, for years, I'm 18 years in the field. I have seen so many situations, different levels, sometimes from the client level, they want lots of researchers in there and they just want a validation that this is really happening, and they want different points of view. I understand that. It gets confusing though, from our standpoint as research, because there's too many hands in the pot, too many points of view, too many maybe experienced, not experienced enough. And that makes our job a lot harder, as I'm sure you can attest, because you go in and you're cleaning up messes, one of the two. Sometimes people go in and it's all about, what are they going to get? The evidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Evidence.
I agree with you. And, I haven't run into too many times where we're investigating a case and there's another group involved. If that did occur, I would be more reluctant to get involved, just because, like you said, there's just too many people involved. And I don't know what their level of skill is. Like, are they, just somebody that watches, a ghost show on TV and thinks that they're doing the right job, or
the couch investigator? I love them.
There's a lot of them.
There is. Yeah. Like, are they just an armchair quarterback, or like, are these people like, seriously involved and, have actual tools that, to help you. But so I would probably, if I ran in that situation, probably act more like you guys would, more like a consultant kind of thing, rather than get involved. And it's not about, I know there's at least there was years ago. I mean, I don't run into it a whole lot now, but I know like the paranormal can be like very territorial, like, especially if there's a couple of groups in the same city, they'll fight over public haunt investigation locations and stuff like that. And we're not like that, like we have lots of work to do. We're not bored. We don't run a monopoly. There's other paranormal investigation groups here in Nova Scotia, as there are in New England. And if you choose to use our organization, then that's awesome. And if you choose to use another organization, then that's awesome too. Like, there's no hard feelings with us.
I refer people all the time to other people.
You have to. You have to make sure the client's getting their help, right?
Exactly.
Make sure the families are getting what they need. It's not about who does it.
No, exactly. I love reaching out to people. You get to know who's reputable, who's not reputable when you're in the field a long time. You know who you can safely, hand people over to, because it really is a responsibility. You're dealing with someone going through major hardship. The last thing you want to do is, give them to somebody who's not going to take proper care. And people don't realize it's far beyond just photographs and video. You really do need to play counselor in a way. You need to really listen, really need to pay attention, ask the hard questions, and govern yourself accordingly. It's not all about that video. It's people first. Dang it.
Yes. No, it is. It's about the client. That's what you should be focused on.
That's right.
Not about, getting permission to trample through someone's house and to snap some photos. And then the other thing that people forget too is that spirits were people too.
They are. We go people without bodies. That's right.
And we often forget about that, or how we treat them. We treat them like we're going to a zoo and we want them to perform, an act
demand for us. You flip over 15 times and yes.
Yeah.
And
the other
thing, that ridiculous. That's why I made it sound ridiculous.
Well, the other thing to be cautious of too are groups that claim that they can, 100% guarantee that they can go in and clear this entity or anything like that. What we believe is that it's human consciousness that has survived bodily death, and it's somehow stuck on this plane. And if they're in a location that that was their home for 80 years, and then it went up for an estate sale, and somebody buys it and moves in, and you're seeing this old man walk around the house, good luck trying to get him to go. I mean, that's where he felt comfortable. For whatever reason, he chose to stay there. So you're not gonna get someone come in, and especially if they're charging. There's a lot of people that charge for house clearings.
That's a no.
So you gotta be careful. There's and I think that's probably why psychologists got away from parapsychology, is because back in the 1800s when psychical researchers started, you had the spiritualism movement, which a lot of psychical researchers found to be frauds. The ectoplasm that mediums were producing turned out to be like cheesecloth and cotton balls and different things that they could hide in different orifices. They also found like the table tapping. They always had a helper. Parapsychological researchers weren't allowed to have the lights on. You couldn't have cameras in there. There was all kinds of like uncontrolled conditions that would allow somebody to trick you. And it still occurs today, but it occurs in the form of what my colleague calls grief vampires, which are the mediums that will hone in on a client that's suffering from grief, and keep charging them
over and over. Because that's actually is a big cause of bringing in something, either projecting out energy or maybe bringing in something more malevolent, because you're so desperately wanting to hear from your loved one. You miss them so much, you call out for it, practically for that sign. And you have these other things coming and saying, "Oh, I'll give you a sign," and it ends up just snowballing from there. And then the mindset isn't right to start with. Like, it's really a lot about mindset.
Oh yes, yeah. You could take advantage of somebody really quick, and Amelia, you are very talented as well and have psi ability. So you would probably think that that type of behavior is unethical and disgusting. Really,
I'm very disgusted. I don't charge for anything, and especially not grieving. I do a lot of parents who have lost children. I do bereavement readings. I do all of that, and I'll spend whatever time they need. I've spent in excess of 4 hours with parents. I don't believe in taking advantage of anyone at their lowest point. In fact, I had a friend on Facebook whose niece is missing, and she contacted me today. And she sent me a GoFundMe thing. And I said, "Why are you raising this money?" She said, "To help find her, because we have to pay for detectives." Like, well, nobody should be charging you for anything. This is a child.
Absolutely.
I said, no. So I, tried to get her some help in that. And I was just grateful that she came to me, because obviously there's a reason. And I'm totally disgusted by it. I'm disgusted by anybody who takes money from anyone who is going through.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that those people are out there, and unfortunately, they're in this type of work, and you got to be careful.
It's too easy. People are desperate; they're afraid.
Can I share a story with you quickly? Sorry, I'll make it as fast as possible.
Oh yeah.
I had given my services, if that's what you want to call them, as a raffle at a fundraiser. And the person that won it happened to be the sister of a woman who lost her only child. He was 31 or 32, and he passed away, heart attack on a soccer field. Nothing was wrong with him. She came to me. I spent a good, my God, over 4 hours with her. And I found out that she's been seeing the same psychiatrist. Psychic. Thank you, psychic. But it feels like a psychiatrist because get this, once to twice a week, and is paying for it. And I said to her, what does he tell you next week that's different from this week?
Yeah.
And she said, no, he makes me feel good. And I said, and he's taking money from you. She said, yeah. I said to her, we have a problem here. We need to talk. But the thing is, she honestly believes that she's communicating with him, and she has a lot of photographs. She's definitely got him communicating, him showing in photographs, and he's very, very he knows how to manifest. He's so strong, that bond is there. But I don't believe that psychic is giving her anything.
No,
for $200 a week.
You just reiterated what I said about grieving, the people having that need, like it's so deep seated, that need to be able to hear that voice that one last time, see their face that one last time, any messages just to prove that they're there, and
this is weekly for 2 years.
Yeah,
I don't know if she's still going, because I said to her, I will help you. You want to take walks wherever he was. We can do whatever you want, but please stop paying him. I'll do it for you. And she just feels like if she's paying, it's real. Right? I don't know. I thought it was really sad.
Definitely sad. Yeah, for sure. And there's probably hundreds of people out there like that. And like Michelle said, like different people deal in grief in different ways. I've lost people. I lost my dad when I was only 22, and I went actually just talked about this on Daryl and I started our podcast, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I just talked about this with Lloyd Auerbach on our podcast. So I was working with the RCMP in Penticton, British Columbia, from 2005 to 2008. And my dad had gotten sick. He had contracted hepatitis C through the Canadian tainted blood scandal.
Oh, and no.
Yeah, he was a hemophiliac, grew up in Ottawa. Actually, out of the 4, he was from a family of 12. Out of the 4 brothers that had hemophilia, all 4 of them actually got bad blood through the system. And
that's terrible.
Only one of them is still alive today.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, our family got hit hard in that scandal. But, what had happened is it was his 48th birthday coming up in June of 2006. And Penticton has leave restriction. So you can only get so much time off. And I was just a young constable at the time. Didn't have much money. That was my first career. Flights from British Columbia to Halifax were extremely expensive because you're going from the West Coast to Atlantic Canada. So the most they would give me off was like 6 days. And if they had just given me the last 2 night shifts off, I could have had my 4 days off. So I actually would have been home for quite a while. I actually had people offer to work those night shifts for me so that they wouldn't be short. But management, in their wisdom, decided that wouldn't be fair because, just because you're getting people to cover your shifts or whatever, what if somebody else wants more time off? So they basically told me that come fall, September 1st, once the tourists are gone and school's back in, I could go back to Nova Scotia, spend as much time as I want with my family. Unfortunately, that never came because on August 14th of 2006, he passed away. So I always felt this terrible guilt. I felt that, maybe I should have taken those stupid 6 days and at least had those 6 days with him. But it was just, like I said, it was at the time, it was just so much money. We didn't realize, how sick he was. Like, we knew he was sick and that he was going to pass away, but not that quickly. So I ended up, a film producer friend of mine, Donna Davies, had just finished doing a documentary about psychics in Atlantic Canada. So I asked her, I said, who was the best psychic that you interviewed, in Atlantic Canada, in your opinion? So she gave me a list of 2 or 3 people. So I contacted one of them here in Halifax, and I went there. And without me explaining that situation to her, and she would have no background to kind of dig up, that I was feeling guilty that I never came back and saw him.
It should be that way. Yeah.
She passed a message along saying that it was from him, saying that I just need to let that go and not to worry about it. And that actually, like, for whatever reason, that was like the peace that I needed. And I had peace within myself ever since then. And like Lloyd and Daryl and I had discussed on the podcast, that's a sign of a good medium, whereas they could have honed in on that and said, oh, okay, this guy, is really having difficulty with this. Let's string this guy along. Let's get some more money from him, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that didn't happen in my case, which, obviously.
You're fortunate.
Fortunate. It was fortunate. It actually helped me deal with the grieving process. And, it turned out to be a very positive experience.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy for you. You needed that, and he made sure that you found a way to hear it.
Yes. And it was, like I said, it was just, it was awesome. It's what I needed, because I always felt bad. I should have went for those 6 days and didn't.
Can't go what if,
Yeah.
Because there's just no way of really knowing.
No, that's true. You just literally never know what's going to happen. You were talking about children passing on too. I'll share a story that's going to be in more supernatural encounters. A lady contacted Daryl and I after he ran that ad for Ghost Project Canada, asking if anyone had any stories. So a lady from Ontario had contacted us, and I called her and listened to her story. And so she used to live in Germany back in 1986, and she was pregnant. And she was about 7 months pregnant, and then Chernobyl had struck. And I didn't know this. Like, I knew what Chernobyl was, but I didn't realize like how many people got sick from the radioactive fallout and all the defective bursts that had happened and all that stuff. So anyway, she said that when she went for follow-up ultrasounds, they saw some deformities in the baby, and then the medical team tried everything that they possibly could to save the baby. But unfortunately, the baby was born in August. Chernobyl happened in April of 1986. The baby was born in August, stillborn. Oh my God. Ever since then, this lady was finding little feathers around her house.
Oh my God!
And she attributed that to her daughter. So then she moves to Canada, and she goes through another rough time. She's in a domestic abuse relationship, and she gets into an argument one night with her husband. And this woman actually worked for the military for 25 years. Like, she was a guard, like a civilian guard for the military. So, reputable person. So she gets arrested that night because in Canada, I'm not sure about the States, but I know in Canada, like the police, we used to be obligated to basically make an arrest during a domestic disturbance if there was evidence. And that's because of the high lethality that comes with domestic violence. So obviously something was said by her partner, and that caused the police to arrest her. So she was sent to a prison in London, which was terrible conditions. It was actually, there was a lawsuit against them, $325 million lawsuit for the type of conditions that these prisoners were enduring there. And so she said she was there. She was highly distressed because, and again, this goes to the mental health aspect of people experiencing paranormal phenomena. She was highly distressed, spent the night in a cold, freezing cell. And she said at 5:55 a.m., a correctional officer was coming down the hallway, and he was clanging a metal cup against the bars to all the prisoners and asking them if they wanted a cup of coffee for the morning.
Okay.
And she said at that time she felt a little hand touch her shoulder. And so she kind of like looked back, and she could actually see like a little hand. And then when she fully turned back, she saw what she said was her daughter with a man that kind of to her looked like, she described him as looking like Jesus. So when she got released from jail, she told her mother about this experience. She said, I saw my daughter and she was with this man that kind of looked like Jesus, but I'm not really sure. And the mother said, oh, that's probably your older brother that had also passed away on her, because based on the description, she said, that sounds like your older brother. And so even before she decided to contact us, she found a little feather by her foot because she wasn't sure if she wanted to share her story.
Yes.
And so she was kind of, internalizing that. And then a little feather appeared by her foot. And she said, nope, that's a sign for my daughter. I'm going to tell her story. And so she contacted me. She gave me permission to use it in my upcoming book because, it does fall under law enforcement because she was with the military for 25 years. And it's just it was a really sad and tragic story, but I also thought it was really cool. And it's good to know as well that she, it does have a happy ending, and I do say that in my book as well. The charges were dropped against her from the prosecution. They obviously didn't have enough to pursue, a conviction against her. Substantial likelihood for conviction is the term. And since then, she's actually an advocate now for domestic violence and also for equal parenting as well. So it turned out to have a happy ending, even though this poor lady had gone through quite a bit of tragedy in her life.
But sharing her story with you and you putting that in the book and everyone who reads it is healing. And like I had tears the whole time you were telling me, because I lost a child before I had my daughter a year before, and I was 7.5 months pregnant, and I know what that feels like. And to have that kind of hope as a mom who's lost a child, all those moms reading your book are just going to feel this super energy and this beautiful healing. You're doing a good thing.
Well, thank you. And I was glad that she had shared it. And that's what she said. She said she wanted to tell her daughter's story. And I thought that was really courageous of her.
Yeah. Make sure that, she's remembered that she's not just a baby. Like, people don't associate, if they haven't lived a life here, they don't have that same kind of feeling, which is sad because they're still babies.
Absolutely.
Especially a stillborn. You're already 9 months. Like, come on. I was almost there, so.
Yeah.
Nothing worse than going through delivery and then finding out that they're not alive. That's terrible. I'm glad that she had
I can't even imagine. Yeah, absolutely.
No.
I cannot even imagine, because I have 2 daughters. I have Sophia, who's 11, and I have Meadow, who is 1. So I've been there for both births. So I understand that what a woman and a father go through during delivery. So I couldn't even imagine that happening, or even as your child is older, something happening to them. And you can see how people would kind of maybe get sucked into the grief vampire route.
Very, very easily. And I do love his coined term. Very easily. It's very sad that it's happening so often.
It is, yeah, it is. And I mean, that's one of our goals in, PPRI, is to educate people. And, like there's institutions like the Windbridge Institute and the Rhine Research Center that screen, Lloyd was telling me as well, the Forever Family Foundation. I always struggle with that word, the 3 F's, but the Forever Family Foundation, all 3 of those organizations screen their mediums. And, so if you can go to their websites and you can find, I guess, lack of a better term, a reputable medium, you can go to their website and find them, the ones that have been tested and, have been deemed to be, safe to use. And, some people don't know that. So, it's our job to educate people on stuff like that.
I like it.
I think that's beautiful. I love that Forever Family Foundation. I love the name.
Yeah, I struggle with that just because of the 3 F's, but no, it's a great foundation, and Lloyd is the president of it. So they do a lot of great work, and it's all free.
Nice, as it should be, in my opinion, as it should be.
Yeah, I've never charged. Like, I know some people do a sliding scale and stuff like that. I've never charged ever for any of my stuff. Actually, my chief financial officer is also my fiance, and she was not happy to do our finances last year and see how much money I spent.
Like nothing there.
Yeah, she actually has me suspended from spending any more money right now for PPRI until she audits my 2021 expenses so far. Because again, it's it's all out of our pocket. Like,
you have to do it slowly.
As an ex-CRA employee, the term audit is terrifying. So.
Yeah, no, she's she's heavy on me about my spending habits. But I mean, like, PPRI is funded by myself and Spencer Collier, and until, like I said, we can get the charity status and hopefully do some,
of course.
some more fundraising and stuff like that. So
that would be fantastic.
But you could charge for things like courses.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
right?
actually,
Parapsychology courses.
That brings me into one of my other topics I want to discuss, is that Daryl and I are actually looking at designing an introduction to parapsychology course.
Very cool.
There are a few reputable spots out there to get them, like the Rhine Education Center does one. The University of Edinburgh does one. Actually, Karen O'Keefe does one as well with the School of Parapsychology. All reputable spots to go to. I guess they're in very high demand, though, and I don't know if it's because of COVID and people are at home. They have a little bit more time on their hands. But right now, all the paranormal
courses. Because usually, don't you take that when you take psychology? You get 1 or 2 weeks of parapsychology. Like, that's as good as it gets. At least here in Canada.
I know when I did my criminology degree, there was abnormal psychology, but that was more about like disorders and stuff like that.
I think the university has a parapsychology course because my brother took child psychology. So I think they have it.
There's a new field called anomalistic psychology, and that's actually all about parapsychology. It's about people's experiences with parapsychology. I couldn't find. I looked around to see if there's a degree for it. I can't find a degree program for it. And it's probably because it's like a fairly new field of parapsychology. The other type of psychology as well that deals with like spiritualism and stuff like that is transpersonal psychology, which is also becoming more and more popular. But there are those parapsychology courses. I guess enrollment is through the roof. So Daryl and I decided, Daryl used to teach at the Nova Scotia Community College. That's how I started my formal training in parapsychology. That was my first experience to it. I took 2 of his courses when they were taught there. And, he taught that for several years, at least over 12 years. And once I passed those courses and became part of his research group and he got to know me, I was an assist instructor on the course. So Daryl and I have the experience doing it. So we're in the process of designing an introduction to parapsychology course right now. And once we finish that, we want to kind of branch off and do a few more courses. It's a lot more time consuming than I thought. It's getting the material together. It's doing up your PowerPoint. It's doing your lecture notes. And but there's some other really cool courses that we want to design and will design eventually. Like, I have an interest in demonology, so I would like to do like an introduction to demonology course. Daryl has interest in near-death experiences, so he would like to do a course just on near-death experiences. So we're hoping eventually that we'll offer several paranormal courses that people can take, and that's kind of one of the big projects that we're working on.
Well, I think people often get confused with the differences between parapsychology and paranormal, especially when it comes down to investigative techniques.
Yeah, so parapsychology is only the study of ESP, or extrasensory perception, mind-matter interaction, or psychokinesis, and survival. And survival is my favorite topic. I actually used to hate whenever I was taking courses to talk about ESP and psychokinesis. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older and a little bit more mature that I realized you have to understand the basics of parapsychology before you go into an investigation, because ESP and psychokinesis all relate to survival investigations. But survival investigations include near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, reincarnation, apparition sightings, residual hauntings. That's the field that I, am most interested in and probably have the most experience in. But I do find ESP and psychokinesis very fascinating, especially
big time for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me too. And especially when it comes to poltergeist with recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, I find that really fascinating, because that is something that a trained paranormal investigator can actually help stop, because a lot of times the psychokinesis is coming from what they call a living agent, or a person. And it can be multiple living agents. There's been some cases where there's been two or three different people that are kind of causing this phenomena to occur. But normally, once you address the underlying issues, whether that's, you get them to go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or even just sometimes at the mere mention and explaining to these people, of what psychokinesis is, the activity stops.
Well, it gives them their power back, right?
But do you just find, I find in the years that I've been dealing, people seem to find it easier to wrap their heads around the fact, that there could be a demon in the house.
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but she's so right.
It's true. It's just like oh when you say to somebody, no, I have gotten very gentle. Now I'll just send a link. So psychokinesis, and say, if you can see anything in here that looks familiar, we'll go and we'll discuss it a little further, because it's gotten to a point where it's hard for them to believe that you're a very powerful individual. We as people, our mindsets it can create these amazing things, but it's easier for them to think that, nope, it's a demon doing it, than it is for them to think I am this really amazing person. But there's obviously something that's going on with me for me to project all of this stuff, like, things like walking around or doors opening, or people can't get their heads around that. So how do you explain something like that to people?
Well, actually, that case I talked to you guys about there at the beginning, that is basically one of those cases where the client could not absolutely understand how they could be manifesting the activity. And so they related it back to either an apparition or a demon. And I kept explaining to them, I said, no, like, it can happen. There's been lots of cases. One of the cases I like to talk to, and Daryl and I talked to Lloyd about it there just last week, was his case that he entitled the Choking Ghost case. And it was a former police officer that was manifesting psychokinesis. She was being attacked by this invisible entity. And when Lloyd and his investigators investigated it, they determined that she was just recently undergoing some counseling for some sexual trauma that she had experienced as a child. And that was drumming up thoughts about her father. And they got permission to pair up with her psychiatrist, and they were able to help her work through that. But she was at a Christmas party or a work party, and witnesses had actually seen like fingerprint impressions on her neck. So like, this phenomena is real, and it can be experienced by people and it can be witnessed by other people, but sometimes it is hard. Now, in her case, she was open to the idea, obviously. In the client that we dealt with, they were not open to the idea that they could manifest this. At the end of the day, all you can do is the best job. I can look at myself in the mirror and I know I did everything for that client. And in fact, I was unsure if they were going to want to participate with the clinical parapsychologist, but they did. They actually reached out to the clinical parapsychologist, gave them a heads up. I gave her the information, said, this is what we're recommending, that you contact this clinical parapsychologist and help work through these issues. And they did. And that's all that you can really ask for. And that's, that's to the extent that I can deal with as well. Like, I'm working on a master's degree in counseling psychology, but I'm not a psychologist, so I can't go into that part of it. Same with my colleague Daryl. He's trying to do a clinical doctorate in parapsychology because he wants to become a clinical parapsychologist. But again, he doesn't have the certification for that, so we can't go outside our expertise and practice something that we're not licensed to do. So.
No, it's true.
And this is a huge community. Like, the paranormal community is huge. So if you have better resources or somebody that's an expert in something, like, I'm not an expert in every single thing, like, like fairies, for example, I've heard stories about them. I've had people tell me stories about them, but I'm not a fairy expert, but I'm sure that there are fairy experts out there. So
we have one for you if you need one.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know, because everyone thinks
she was just on the show.
Yeah, we've got a couple that are, but Morgan, she's
incredible.
Well, see, that's what I mean. Like, just connecting with people, you find out, different people, different specialties, and you can help clients. So if you have a client that comes to you with a fairy problem because they're not these cute little Tinkerbells, apparently they're quite mischievous and whatnot. So, at least, hey, we know that there's resources out there for that. So.
I have a friend in the south of France right now doing research with fairies, and these two elderly people who are just apparently brilliant. And I'll tell you what, how they're connecting it to religious people, you know, like Mother Mary, things like that, and they've got ancient texts to back it up. So if that is correct, you're dealing with a whole other ancient culture.
Yeah, I think you would really love Morgan.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. But yeah, you know, we have people on this show who I always say are at the top of their fields. So there you go.
I'll have to watch that one for sure. And I noticed tonight that actually I was. It's funny. Before the show, I was communicating with the wrong Michelle. It was Michelle Freed who said to say hi.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Michelle Freed.
But,
she's awesome.
I was texting her. I was like, "Hey, Michelle, I'm online. I'm ready to go whenever you are." And she's like, "Oh my God." She's like, "Are you scheduled tonight?" I'm like, "Haha, that's funny, Michelle. You were promoting it all day." And she's like, "No, I'm serious." And then I clued in that I was talking because it just came up Michelle on Skype. It didn't say Desrochers.
She must have been panicking.
Oh, she was. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I apologize. She said to say hi to you, and I said, "But I'll come on your podcast if you want." So she said she'll send me an email. So
she's funny. Oh my gosh, she's a hoot. I love her.
I love her.
But no, it's great to reach out to to other people, and I'm not afraid to do it. And in fact, actually, in the podcast Daryl and I run, the first episode, we told people like don't just listen to us. Like if you don't believe us, like Google it, pull up the research. Like there's websites like Google Scholar and archive.org and Public Parapsychology .com or .org that you can pull up like the studies yourself and read them. Some of them are pretty dry and statistical. But you can access all that information.
That's a very catchy name, the dueling parapsychologists.
Yes, because Daryl and I, so we decided to start our own podcast. We don't, I don't anticipate that it'll be as popular as this show, but
stop it. Of course,
it will. Know that.
Of course, it will.
But we both had actually people contact us before, and they said like, why don't you guys do do a podcast or whatever? And it's not something that I've been interested in doing myself. I like appearing on them and talking on them, but I never had the desire to do one. And so anyway, Daryl kind of was interested in it. And so where I had that partner there that was like kind of invested and interested in it, I was like, okay, well, I'll jump on board. But if you had two people that weren't interested in it, it's a lot of work. Like you got to do research and you got to plan your show and you got to know about your, scheduling. And so it's a lot of work. So I didn't want to do something like weekly or anything like that. I just once a month because like
and we do it twice a week.
I know. So like I have, now that I've done 2 episodes, I have all the respect for people that actually host these because I know how difficult they are. But we decided to try it. So the first episode was just kind of like an introduction to parapsychology, talked a little bit about the history of parapsychology and psychical researchers. And then the second episode, we had Lloyd Auerbach on there and we talked about poltergeist. So it's another way, I guess, for us to kind of bring some education out there to people and some resources. And the other thing is Daryl and I don't always agree, and that's why we called it the Dueling Parapsychologist podcast, because like there's certain things I believe in, like I do like demonology, and Daryl, he's not really interested in that, but Daryl's like a big Bigfoot researcher kind of thing. And I mean, like I'm open to the idea that they exist, but like he's like adamant that they exist. So
I'm with you. I know they're there. I just don't have that big interest. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Like it's really interesting. I mean, like even just on our planet, like we're always finding like different fish and different there's creatures out there we still don't even know about because all you have to do is just wait a week and read it in the news that they found something else, right? So, I'm open to the idea, just not as passionate about it as Daryl. The other thing is our TV producer friend there that I mentioned earlier, Donna Davies. She's in the process of pitching a TV series with Daryl and I on it. So we're hoping that takes off as well. And you'll see the same thing. You'll kind of see Daryl and I, kind of arguing our opinion for or against something. So it'll be interesting.
I think that's fantastic because people get to see two different views and they can relate to you more because there's two different views rather than just one.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, like Daryl and I, and he always says this too, we're friends and we might not agree, but we always like respect each other. You know what I mean? There's never any hard feelings or anything like that. Like he didn't want to get involved in the case that we just talked about because it was too crazy for him, I guess, in his mind. And,
so he's just more conservative and just likes to be low key.
Yeah, and that's
Bigfoot's low key.
That's okay. Low key's all right.
Bigfoot's huge.
Well, that's why I make fun of him because like he's all over a Bigfoot case or something like that. But then we get like the psychokinesis dynamic haunting case, and he's poo-pooing it. So
some people feel more comfortable. I think with something that they feel can be more flesh and blood. Mm-hmm. Like honestly. In all my years in the paranormal, the crypto stuff is there. People are always telling you stories, and I get loads of stories. And now, my son gets this freaking property out, in Eastern Ontario, and there's all this tree tapping, all this crazy stuff going on, and the property caretaker's like, whatever you do, don't tap back. Apparently, that's a sign of war. He's like,
you might want to research that if you move out into a forest. Just saying.
Don't hurl any stones. Apparently, that's a sign of war too. Keep it quiet. Go the other way. I've had it big for people telling me this. So it's like, don't try to communicate by tapping things because they get really angry.
Yeah, it's not Morse code.
No, but you just never know, I suppose, what they're going to be. This is up near Algonquin Park. You got 20,000 kilometers of nothing, especially since lockdown.
Yes, yeah.
So if there is anything out there, it's a great place to disappear. What's another 400 acres?
My God, even without lockdown, it's still desolate. Yeah.
Well, it is, So it's just, I don't know. I definitely think everything is possible. I don't like to think, I have a logical mind. I have to really think things through. I don't look at things at face value. But I'm also logical enough to think that we're just a very small grain on a very big beach.
Yeah, that's very well said. And it's very true. Like I said, every day they discover something new. And I think eventually science will be able to explain what these things are that we don't understand. Like we don't really understand what human consciousness is. Daryl and I were just talking about this the other day. There was a case where a lady was out hiking or mountain climbing and she basically froze to death. She was clinically dead for an hour. She got rescued. They brought her back to life. She had absolutely no recollection of anything. And so Daryl and I, were thinking and having like this deep discussion. We're like, well, where did her consciousness go? Like, you know what I mean? Because then there's been other cases. I actually contacted the Ryan Center and said, hey guys, like I'm just kind of interested in this case. And the girl claimed that she didn't have a near-death experience and she had no recollection, no memory. Does anyone have any similar cases where somebody froze to death and had a near-death experience? And sure enough, one of the researchers wrote back and said that there was a case where a lady had to have a particular surgery, and they basically had to drain most of the blood from her body and basically put her into like this hypothermic cryogenic type state, and she actually had a near-death experience. You could see everybody working on her and all that stuff. So it's really interesting, that one person can be frozen to death and declared clinically dead and not have an experience. Another person, in a controlled environment is basically almost clinically dead and has this near-death experience. So even as parapsychologists, we don't understand everything, and that's what we're working towards, is trying to understand it. And hopefully one day, science and technology will get better, that we do answer some of these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Near-death experiences are tough. I've had quite a few, and none of them, even talking to guests that have had them, that Michelle and I have had on, or research, none of them are alike. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
You have very few similarities in their experiences. Like I didn't see my body, but I traveled, but I don't, like other people, they see doctors working on them, as you mentioned. And I didn't have that experience, so I didn't even realize that that's what had happened.
Yeah, and culturally too, I know a lot of people talk about seeing a tunnel and a bright light and a religious figure or some sort of being waiting for them. And then over in the the Chinese culture, they see like fields and rivers and bridges, and
So it's what's conditioned. What we're conditioned to, do you think? Like what we're
I mean,
taught?
there definitely could be a sociological aspect to it or a cultural phenomena based on it for sure. It's the same as like fairies, for example. Like that stems from like there's actually supposed to be fairies here in Nova Scotia, up in Cape Breton.
Here too.
But they're everywhere.
But Cape Breton also has like a lot of like Irish, a lot of UK background, and fairies can be traced back to over there. So you kind of have like a cultural generational.
Exactly. That comes with them, right?
I had both experience. I had the tunnel and I had the fields of flowers, and I could hear the water and the falls and everything else. So it's mind-boggling. I would love to just sit and talk to somebody about that for hours and just find out.
Do you want a weird twist to all of it?
Sure.
Okay. So I came across some research for my other show that I do with Joe Montaldo, The Gray Zone Uncensored. And I found this whole thing where people believe, and this is a research thing, it's theory, but maybe your parapsychological mind can dissect it a bit. There's a theory that reincarnation is actually it's like a recycling thing. Like a matrix thing, I'm going to say, like a very like archonic way of trapping the soul to keep coming back and be the worker bee, right? So we're conditioned to see the white light and to be drawn towards the white light. We're conditioned to fear darkness. So therefore, when you pass, the theory is if you step into the darkness, that you become free. Hence some of these time travelers that are just showing up, like, because you could travel wherever you want, you're free, and they just sort of randomly show up places. I researched this pretty heavily. I was like, this is really interesting. But because of how we're conditioned here in life, we keep recycling back, and they make reincarnation very enticing. You think about your past lives, and sure, you've had them, but it's because you're not given a choice to break free from it.
That's really interesting. I know.
Right?
I thought
so too. I listened to that show.
And it's funny because some people don't believe in reincarnation. I know the Catholic religion, obviously, and that's what I'm from a Roman Catholic background.
Buddhist is all about reincarnation.
Exactly, it's like complete opposite from Catholics. The darkness thing is interesting because in the psychology degrees that I have and the criminology and sociology that I've done, the darkness is interesting because, that stems back from like hundreds of years when, we were living in like huts and caves and, there was creatures roaming around.
There's predators in that there darkness.
Exactly. So the body, the human body and the human mind is conditioned, like you said, to fear darkness, and it's actually interesting because we had night lights in Meadow's room and all that stuff, but Sarah had been reading that a child doesn't identify fear in the dark until a certain age, and that's why it doesn't like really bother them. But then as they get older and they develop their imagination, then that's when you start getting like the weird noises they hear and they think there's a monster under their bed. So it's very, very fascinating from like a psychological, sociological standpoint.
It is, because who teaches the child to fear? So how does it become embedded in instinct? Is it like a DNA imprinting? Is it like, something like that? What is it? Is it mom carrying baby? Who it's because it's embedded into us, it becomes a natural fear that passes on to baby. Because baby's freaking fearless and sees everything as a mini little psychic up until a certain age, but all of a sudden there's a fear. So
there is
that conditioning.
And like, yeah, like we're not going into, Meadow's room telling her that there's monsters and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And it's funny because that's probably about the same age that you have them out trick or treating. Just saying.
Yeah, true.
Just saying.
That's true.
All of a sudden the ghost stories and the little things that they do at school. I had a nightlight in my daughter's room so I wouldn't trip over my own feet. It had nothing to do with her. And my mother used to say that's why she had the light. It wasn't for anything but so that she could see me without completely waking me up. Where you just kind of change the diaper in what they're still in a mellow state and ready to go back to bed kind of thing, rather than shocking them with a light. That's how I always felt it. But I believe my belief is the fear coming from the parent.
Yeah. I mean, certainly. I mean, like, if Meadow starts, developing a fear of the dark, we'll certainly, just talk to her. I'm sure if she came into like right now, she staggers into my office and she sees Valak behind me, and she sees, I have a haunted monkey in a case and stuff like that, but she doesn't have any association to it right now. She comes in and she's like throwing my books everywhere and just making a mess in my office and having a great time. Yeah, but in a couple of years, maybe she'll come down here and get all freaked out.
But I find the whole conditioning of it fairly interesting, and that somewhere along the line, somebody came up with just step into the darkness.
Yeah,
that's step out of that recycling hamster wheel.
Well, and that's the thing about reincarnation too, is not everyone, apparently not everyone goes through it, and then why, for example, like I have no memories of being like a past soul. Like actually, I know they talk about old souls and new souls. I feel like I'm a new soul because I can be so dense at times, maybe just because I'm tired or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm like that old soul. But you do run into people where it seems like they're wise beyond their years. And it's almost like, it's like, geez, this person been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you notice it more in children.
It's interesting. Yes, well, and the reincarnation work, that's exactly it. They say between the ages of, I believe it's 2 and 7, that you should kind of listen to what they're saying. Actually, we had our niece was talking about her other family, and I tried to interview her. But I didn't get like much details out of her. But her sister would always hear her talking about her other family and her other mom, and she was kind of like having conversations with herself, like in her bedroom and stuff like that. So it is interesting. They do find a lot of reincarnation cases happen with children, and there's a lot of great work being done by the Virginia Medical Department. They have the Division of Perceptual Studies. They do a lot of work with children and reincarnation.
Oh, I wish that was around when my nephew was little. Michelle knows my nephew when he's in his 30s now. When he was 2, he could tell you who was on the Titanic, who he believed he was the captain, and he could give you the stats of who passed away, who didn't, how many people were in first class, second class, third class, the layout of the ship. This is a child that the movie wasn't even on yet.
Wow.
And we would just be like, what the hell?
That's really cool.
Freaked out beyond belief, complete, total genius too. And I just couldn't believe it when he was saying, I wish that there was, an organization like that around when Tyler was younger.
It's fascinating. Yeah. I'd like to, how do you tackle something like that? Because that, and to a degree, has got to have some degree of mindset. Like there's got to be some way to prove. Well, how do you prove something like that, really?
But how does a 2-year-old know the stats on the Titanic?
Yeah, no,
that's 3 years old. They're barely speaking.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I know there's been some good cases, like there's the one that was featured in I think it was on Surviving Death, the Netflix documentary, but it was the kid that said he was from Hollywood, and he kept talking about Los Angeles, and he was from Hollywood, and basically his parents ended up showing him like these old photos, and he recognized himself as one of the he was kind of like a B actor in it, and eventually they took a trip out to to California, and they tracked down like where this kid said he lived, and they talked to some of the family, and some of the family corroborated like details that the child was providing, like how the person died and when they died and all that stuff. So there is a little bit of investigation you can do with reincarnation cases, but again, it depends on the details you get. Like when I interviewed our niece just casually, wasn't like a formal interview, but just casually, I couldn't really get any details out. Like she didn't have a name or a location, didn't know, if she had died before. Like there was no details to follow up, and unfortunately, like in a case like that, there's not much more you can do.
That's amazing. That's really I just want to slide in with a station ID. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and myself, Amelia Pisano. Tonight we have the amazing Dr. Elliott Van Duse here with us, and we are United Public Radio. We're airing 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM in New Orleans, the beautiful city of New Orleans, and we are fully sponsored by the good folks at, because I can't not do it, Folgers Coffee. Thank you so much, Folgers. We love you.
I have Folgers every morning.
Yay!
There we go.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I've tried it. Like I do love McDonald's coffee as well, but Sarah and I always buy Folgers.
I always say McDonald's is the old Timmy's.
Yeah,
Timmy's used to be. Folgers should have their own drive-through.
I know.
Yeah, it is good. It is good coffee. I endorse that too.
Very nice.
You guys had mentioned a few things about research there. So one thing that I just took a research methods course from the Rhine Education Center, and one thing I want to do eventually when I have time, I got to find the time. I want to do a research survey on what paranormal investigators do to analyze their evidence with survival, because you always see on Instagram, we have an Instagram account with PPRI. A lot of paranormal groups follow us and stuff, and they're always posting videos and videos and pictures and stuff like that, claiming that it's evidence of survival. But when we post stuff on ours, I always try and give like an explanation. Like for example, if it's a EVP that we put, I usually put the different theories behind EVP. One is that it's a discarnate entity, which is what we all hope, capture that spirit or the ghost. But I know from talking to Michelle, like Michelle, you had an experience where, because one of the other theories is that it's psychokinesis, or that it's psi being captured on the tape. And you actually had a personal experience with that. And it's kind of cool. And I tell people that now because now I personally know somebody that has happened to.
In reverse speech.
So it can happen. The other thing is obviously you can't rule out interference. I actually had a case. A guy contacted me through Facebook and said that him and his friend were communicating through Facebook Messenger, but they were using the microphone to send voice clips. Yes. And so they were like doing that rather than typing out and all that stuff. So they were communicating through the voice clips, and in one of the voice clips, you could hear like this kind of malevolent sounding voice, like you couldn't make out what it was saying, but it was like talking over.
Oh, great. Now everybody's going to be doing it.
You could hear them talking over it.
She's so right. It's not funny.
And so he sent me the clip, and I actually had a friend that used to work with the RCMP Technological Crime Unit. So I sent him the clip, and I said, listen, can you analyze the audio and stuff like that? So he isolated the noise, and he ran it through all this, the different software, and looked at the spectrograph. And at the end of the day, he said, you know what? He's like, I think it was like some sort of crossover. I think it was like it picked up like a communication from somebody else, like through Facebook, because it was not your typical EVP. Like usually your typical EVP sounds like a whisper. It's hard to make out. It could be audio pareidolia, which is when the mind just tries to make sense of what something says, because that's how we're programmed. We're programmed to make sense of what we see and what we hear. But at the end of the day, he thought that it was some sort of like just interference that had been captured on that clip.
That happened on Skype. Actually, there was a research being done. There was a guy who put 2 or 3 channels, crossover channels, on Skype. This is going back 10, 15 years ago when Skype was fairly new, because people were claiming that they were hearing like spirits and entities and growling and all kinds of things coming through. So he put together these channels that you could call into, and you could just sit there. And so course, as a researcher, I'm like, yeah, I'm all over it. I want to try. I want to see what this is all about. And it really was like you were hearing something else conversing. It sounded really, some of it sounded very gruff, but my mind's going, okay, it's some other idiot on the other side looking to do the same thing that I'm doing. But somebody did do that exact research on that. I don't know if those channels are still out there or not, but
that's interesting. So what I want to do is get the survey designed, like do a proper survey with the proper questions, because that's very important when you do that survey type research, and then reach out to paranormal investigators and have them fill the survey out to see what kind of type of analysis that they do. Do they actually know how to use the software? Like, for example, I downloaded the Adobe software where you can make movies and stuff like that. It is way too complicated for me. Like, I would have to take like a 6-month course to understand how to do that.
I can do Audacity now. Well,
yes,
for
a lot.
Ages.
Yes, for audio they use Audacity to do like little movie type trailer type things. I'm okay at iMovie. I can kind of like fumble my way around there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm interested in like what type of training do people have? What type of analysis do they do? Or are they literally just going out there and like capturing what they think is an EVP and just throwing it up on their Facebook, like trying to get hits or followers or whatnot?
Yeah, it's like a thirst trap.
Because there's two things with that. Is one, it could be misleading to the public on what evidence of survival is, because I'm still seeing orbs, people talking about orbs being proof of ghosts, which is not true, and it's been determined that. Now I'm not saying like if you're in a room and you see a ball of light or something like that, that's different, but these videos you're seeing on the internet, I actually posted one on our Instagram. It was in a haunted house, but it captured a housefly, but it was glowing because it was in the infrared camera was on, so it looked like a mysterious orb. But when you actually slow the video down, you can see that it's a housefly. So I explained that, and I just find groups are not doing that. So I don't know, like maybe they are out there analyzing the stuff.
You have to look at all the conditions. People get very offended when you say the orbs could be, dander, moisture, dust. There's
yes.
They get very offended, and not all orbs are explained away. You know what I mean? Like some of it's like this house gets them. There's no forced air. We have security cameras. No, this house would sit empty for 2 months, 3 months at a time. And yet when you look at the security camera, you see things going into the mirrors, going up into the lights, just things like, and some of them would be like just melding into each other and I'm just like, but there's been nobody at the house for 2 months. There's no forced air. It's radiator heating. There's like no pets in the house. There's nothing. So there's something that will leave you scratching your head.
Yeah, and like I said, there's certain ones like that, like you said, like where things are kind of morphing and on camera and things like that. That are those are more interesting. But there's just so much out there. Like even one night the dogs were just outside. It was night. I could see like the stars, and it wasn't raining. It wasn't foggy. Nothing like that. To me, it looked like a clear night. Just want to take a picture of the dogs. I had the flash on my camera, which I normally don't. And when I hit it, there was actually like all kinds of like mist or fog, one of those type of ghost photos.
Yeah.
That could be on your lens though.
And that's exactly what it was. It was even though I couldn't see it, it was the moisture in the air, because if I would have went out there in the morning, the grass would have had dew on it. So it was obviously the moisture for me. But there are people that, would think that that's a ghost and
falling from the trees. Sorry, go ahead, Amelia.
No. It's okay. I'm always interrupted. I'm so sorry. This story, I find it interesting because I think nowadays we're getting a lot of videos of orbs from new moms because they have these video cams in their babies' rooms, and that's where a lot of them are coming from. And you're forgetting that you're surrounded by cotton. And you have to remember that with forced air, it creates a lot of that. And there's different ways of understanding how orbs move, and you have to find these differences. But my niece sent me a video of her singing happy birthday to her dad. And she said, you have to watch this video, Dia, because I'm freaking out because there's these two lights that look like orbs over my son's head or my daughter's head. I can't remember who it was. And I'm looking and I'm laughing because she's singing happy birthday. She has her flash on and she's doing this while she's singing. As she's doing the movement for the kids, she doesn't realize. I said, if you notice, the two lights that you got going on here are moving at the same with the beat of your voice. And then she's like, oh, thank God. She was happy, but she was convinced.
Do you know how many people don't have somebody to explain it to them?
No, I understand that. Most people don't have an
investigation team in the house. Yeah.
Yeah. Most people don't have an aunt who's a medium, but I was laughing because they panic because I'm their aunt and they hear the stories. They panic at everything. It's like being an officer. You know the stories of you work homicide, you work drugs, you work sex trafficking. Everybody's going to want information from you. So it's the same thing with medium, Yeah. But no, I thought it was so cute though.
When I was a police officer, I'd get called from friends and family asking for like legal advice or whatnot, right?
Oh yeah.
When you're in that,
you're a lawyer.
They'll always be like, I got this traffic ticket. Like, how do I beat it? You know what I mean? Like, you get all
the words. Can you do something for me?
I work sex trafficking, but as a medium, not as a police officer. Do you know how many times people would call me and say to me, well, do you know if they're like running a ring through this place and that? I'm like, what? I work the back end. I'm not on the street, man. Like really, I can tell you where the route goes from Ottawa to Buffalo. I can tell you that because it's the Highway 400 series. I said, but that's stuff on the news. It's not. It's so funny.
It is.
But anyways,
that's true.
So getting back to your applications and trying to get groups to talk about how they analyze their research, what are you hoping to gain by having everyone do that?
So geographic location wouldn't be limited. We're interested to see, like what are people in the UK doing to analyze their ghost photos? Like what software they're using? What are they doing for electronic voice phenomena? Same in Australia. Like you said, Audacity is a common application to do your sound clips. For photographs, like I have a photographer friend that. I always say he's world famous, but like he's endorsed by Nikon, and he's a very, very popular photographer. He's actually going to do our wedding for us. So sometimes I flip him a photograph, check out. And actually, we had a lady contact us. It was through Ghost Project Canada as well when we ran the ad looking for stories, and she said that she had kept this story to herself, and then she felt it was time to share it and gave me permission to share it and stuff. And I think I put the pictures on our social media account. I would be surprised if I didn't. But basically, it was her 50th birthday. She went to the Fortress of Louisbourg in Cape Breton, which is a very known haunted location. It's a French settlement. It was a French settlement. So she said she was there at the fortress all day, and then when they closed, she went over to the lighthouse, and she said they were just having a great time, taking a few pictures. Then all of a sudden, she saw a piper coming, and that there was a wedding party there. So she didn't want to hang around and photobomb their wedding party, but something ended up photobombing her photo. So she said when the piper was up by the lighthouse, it looked like one of those iconic type shots. So she took several different photographs of them. And then later that night, it was around midnight, she said she was at home. She was going to do a Facebook post thanking everyone for a great 50th birthday because she had gone there with her husband, her brother, in-law and sister, and a couple other just friends. And she noticed that in 3 of the photos, there was the piper standing by himself. And then there appeared to be something kind of materializing in the photo behind the rock. And then there was a girl, very clear girl in like this olden green dress that was just standing there. And she swears up and down, left and right, that there was nobody else there. It was just the piper. Wow. I felt that it was too good to be true. Like if this is a genuine ghost photo, then I would argue that this is probably one of the best ghost photos in history, even better than the brown lady of Raynham Hall, because
that's iconic.
because it's so clear. So I had
Nice.
a paranormal investigator that I know from the Ryan Education Center analyze the photograph, and she checked the red, green, blues on it. She checked all the different, spectrographs and everything that you possibly can with the photo. And she said, it hasn't been altered. The only thing that she can come up with, she said, is that it appears to be a real person. And I said, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards too. Like, I just don't know. Like, if you're transfixed on something, it's possible that she missed this girl popping up from the rock. So what we're in the process of, the case is not fully closed yet. I'm in the process of trying to track down the Piper. And it's kind of funny because when I posted it on social media, some people thought that they knew who the Piper was. So they give me a name. So I reached out to the Piper, and he said, no, that wasn't me. But he said, based on the clothing, I think it could be this Piper. So it's kind of funny that even Pipers know other Pipers. Yeah. So he gave me a list of like 2 or 3 people that I'm trying to track down now, because it could be something as simple as you contact the Piper and the Piper's like, oh yeah, that's my daughter. She must have got in the way or something like that.
Or maybe somebody hired for the wedding.
Or you know what? I know that girl was at the wedding. I remember seeing her.
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll contact the Piper and be like, geez, I don't remember there being anyone there either, or whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know until we track down that Piper, but it's still ongoing. But it just goes to show you like the effort that is put into this photo. It's not just somebody send you a photo, says it's a ghost, and you take it for its word, just post it on Instagram and try and get like a bunch of hits and a bunch of likes. Like, we're actually trying to figure it out. Like, is it a genuine ghost photo, or sometimes people have tunnel vision, and where she was rushed, it was the end of the day, she was rushed, she didn't want to photobomb the wedding, she was fixed on the lighthouse and the Piper. She may have very well missed this person coming up from the rock, or it could be a ghost. It's one of the two.
Yeah,
but the photo wasn't fake, so that's good.
I love your methodology, because being a former, well, I have to say RCMP corporal, because saying just police officer isn't enough here. You just look at everything as a legal investigation, which is amazing, because there's just so many more steps, like tracking down the Piper. It's not something a paranormal team would do. You take that extra step.
I definitely take the skill sets that I've learned from my policing career, and I do apply them to to my parapsychological work. One thing as well is when we go on an investigation now, I've implemented, don't have like an actual policy book, but I have implemented that at the end of the day, there's almost like an exhibit custodian. So whenever the police do a search warrant or anything like that, or you're working a major file, they have one person that deals with the continuity of exhibits. And that's so that nothing gets contaminated. So we've implemented that when we're on an investigation, at the end of the investigation, all of the technology, so it's the tape recorders, the SD cards, anything like that you've used or captured data on, you give to one investigator. That investigator then downloads everything to we have a 6 terabyte hard drive, download everything to that, and then you can give the equipment back in case there's another investigation or somebody needs their camera or their digital recorder or whatever. But the continuity of it is kept with one person. So you got the investigator that used the equipment, that turns it over to your exhibit custodian, basically, and then they're the one that are responsible for analyzing it, rather than you take your camera home and look at it, you take your tape recorder home and look at it. It just kind of makes it a little bit cleaner, you know what I mean? And then that way too, it's not like, because I know like at some of these investigations, like especially if it's a nighttime investigation and you get off at 7 a.m, I mean, you're kind of like, oh, just leave my gear in the trunk or this or that. Well, in the police world, if you left evidence in the trunk of your car until the next time you come back on shift, you've lost. You've lost. Yes, you've lost. You've lost continuity of that evidence, and that would be tossed at a court. And so that's kind of the standard that I hold for my investigators. I try and do it the same way that that law enforcement would do it.
That happened in a very popular case in the States. I won't give the name of the young girl that was murdered, but that happened there. She had left something on her front seat and stopped somewhere else before going back, and it was tossed. I was just shaking my head on that case, but anyways, yeah.
So it's just like an extra kind of step that we take,
Good for you.
Help secure
Integrity.
Yes, absolutely. But I think the research will be good, because, like I said, I'm genuinely interested. Like I'm not. I am kind of hard on. I am kind of hard on some amateur, ghost hunters, I guess. So's Daryl. But I think it's just because there's so many like misconceptions out there. Like I'm still seeing like lots of video of people filming their investigations in the dark, and like TV does it for the dramatic effect. Some of the investigators probably do it because they see the people on TV do it. But Eleanor Sedgwick with the Society for Psychical Research did a phenomenological study where she took a bunch of different apparition cases and tore them apart and looked at, when an apparition forms and how they form and all that stuff. And she determined that they can appear in daylight, nighttime, indoors, outdoors.
You're haunted. Not just sometimes, all the time.
No, during a sunny day, during a stormy day. It can happen anytime. And so when you're properly trained to do an investigation, the only time you should be investigating in the dark is if your client says that something is only happening when it's dark or when the lights are out. So if you're in like the bedroom and the apparition only shows up when the lights are off, then of course, you're going to have to do your investigation.
Certain times of the day. Sometimes it has to do with equipment also. Sometimes the equipment, if you're dealing with infrared, for example, probably would work better at night. But I think that's where people have to go back to the basics of research.
Yes. Yep. And you're right. There are certain equipment that will obviously only function at night. But again, you have to look at, I guess, the lived experience of the client. Like when is the activity occurring?
And common sense, because if they're saying to you it happens at night when I'm in my room, well, are you in your room anytime during the day?
Well, if you work all day,
because you're working all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, then of course your experiences are at night, because that's when you're in there.
At the end of the day, if you're haunted, you're haunted. You're haunted all the time. You're not just haunted. The person can only, base their experiences on when they're in the environment.
Yep. And that's another thing that we're taught as well is, just because you go there for a night or two and nothing happens, it doesn't mean that the place isn't haunted. I've been in a very haunted house, the Evil in Exeter case that I worked, and there was times where there was a lull, whether the entity was recharging, like because they had dispersed so much psychokinetic energy by making, doors open and close and alarms go off and stuff like that, whether they're again recharging or they're just taking a break, or maybe they stepped out for a minute for a ghostly smoke. I mean, I don't know. But, you know what I mean? Like there are times where even the most haunted locations don't have any activity. So just because you're there for a night or two and nothing happens, I mean, you can't really say that it's not haunted. You have to go by the people that are there all the time, the people that live there that are living there 24/7.
Yeah, those are the eyewitnesses. So let's say that you decide, okay, you want to offer demonology courses, because you're into demonology. How are you going to meld your parapsychology in with demonology? Because some people might kind of go, like there's a very different extremes.
There are, and with demonology, there's a lot of different factors too, because parapsychology does fit into demonology in a way, because you see ESP or psi when the possessed person has knowledge of future events or knowledge of events that they should have no way of knowing.
No. But that's if you get to the possessed state. That doesn't happen often. Most of the time you're under infestation or oppression, right? So
and during the infestation oppression stage, you would see a lot of psychokinesis activity, because you're having things move, you're having things materialize and dematerialize. So parapsychology very much does fit into demonology. But I would like the course to cover like the history of demonology, talk about some of the different religions, because it's not just the Catholic religion that believes in demons as well. I actually had the Evil in Exeter case had a little bit of Islamic demonology with jinns, because there's good jinns and bad jinns. So it's not just the Catholic faith that has demonology. So I really want to kind of cover the history of it, where it came from, talk a little bit about the different religions and the differences and the similarities, and kind of go into like some current cases and things like that, or popular cases that have like Annalise Michel and those types of cases, the Roland Doe case that the Exorcist movie was based on, and just I think it would be very fascinating. Like I have a really interest in it, and I think that other people would too. So just trying to explain, I guess, and present a picture to people that they can make up their own mind. And some stuff you just can't explain. Actually, it was funny in the course I just took with Karen O'Keefe. I asked him, I said, so you have an interest in what he calls this religious parapsychology is what he calls this. When you factor in demonology, it used to be called Christian parapsychology, but he's really pushing to call it religious parapsychology. So I said to him, you interview a lot of exorcists. He said, yeah. And I said, have you ever heard that a priest, if they've done something wrong or sinned, that they have to go to confession? Because if they go to confession and they get absolved of their sin, that the demon can't use that against them. And he said, yes, I have heard of that. And I said, okay, so you're also a scientific parapsychologist. He said, yes. So I said, from a scientific parapsychologist perspective, how can the demon not access that memory? Because the memory should still be present. Like say the priest stole, let's just not go the sex route. Let's say the priest stole something and he got absolved of that crime. How could the demon still not access that memory? Because the memory of him doing it would still be in his mind, even though he's been absolved by the church. And it was kind of funny because I don't think he'd ever been asked that question before, but he basically didn't have an answer for it. He said that obviously the religious aspect of it must follow some sort of other supernatural set of rules, because he agrees as a parapsychologist, the demon or spirit or whatever it is should be able to still access that memory. But from a religious perspective, once they're absolved of it, the demon does not use it.
Oh, it's a mindset.
Because not all, we're probably talking Catholicism and Christianity. Not all religions have to have you confess your sins, and you know what I mean. It gets strange. I don't know.
And that would be from a Catholic exorcism perspective, because they have to undergo certain ritual before they even do it. They have to they can't eat anything. They have to drink holy water
for 3 days. Now, if you ever want to talk to someone from the old Catholic Church, Bishop James Long is a friend of ours, and he is an exorcist. Do you know Bishop James?
I know his name. Yes,
you should be contacting him, because he actually has been to the Exorcist Boy, which was really a boy. He knows them personally. I know he can't speak of everything, but he has studied Annalise Michel. He has all of the videotapes on it and the audio. So
I'll definitely reach out to him.
That would be something that,
tell him to spoke to the redheads on the Outer Realm.
He won't. Yeah, he'll be like, what? Because he does so
many
shows. The
redheads on the Outer Realm said I should be contacting you. Okay.
You could just give him our names, but I've been friends with him for years. But he's just taking some time to heal because he hurt his back. But he's even opened an Instagram account, and it took him less than a few weeks, and he had 400,000 followers because he shows. Wow. He shows video clips of these exorcisms and talks about them, and other people are sharing things. Not Instagram, TikTok. Which is so funny, because I'm like, you're the only person I follow on TikTok, because I can't stand being on it, because TikTok's like 2 minutes and 4 hours later you're like, what the hell?
She's not being honest. She needed an intervention.
I had to close my account. I just reopened it.
The producer and I are like, stop.
I'm sharing all these oversharing videos like crazy. But
that's so funny. That's the one social media thing I don't have is TikTok. But
you know what? Just do it to follow him.
Sarah has it, so I'll get her.
Lurk hers.
Lurk hers. Go on hers, and follow Bishop James, and he's got so many videos on there. You're going to be so shocked at all the stuff that he talks about. And they want him to like debunk videos and get his opinion. And he's doing so many sharing things. He's very interesting too. And he's the raised Roman Catholic, but is an old Catholic church bishop.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to him. I have heard of him. I think he was actually teaching some courses.
I took his course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll definitely reach out to him for sure.
Unfortunately, it's 11 p.m.
Yes.
The 2 hours is gone.
Yeah.
So tell everybody how to find you, promote yourself, what you have coming up, books, all that. Just throw it all out there.
Yeah, so you can find us at basically ppri.net. So it stands for Paranormal Phenomena Research Investigation.net. That has my social media contacts on there. It has a link to the Dueling Parapsychologist podcast.
Say that 3 times.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. The only book that I have that I'm working on right now is the More Supernatural Encounters from Law Enforcement. I hope to have that out sometime in the fall. I don't have an exact date narrowed down. I'm still in the process of writing it, and there's still a few stories trickling in. So you can find that info again on ppri.net. I'm also on Facebook under Elliott Van Dusen, the author page. I have a personal account and the author page, and then PPRI INC, because down in the States we're registered in Massachusetts as an incorporation. So PPRI Inc. for INC Incorporated. That you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Don't have TikTok, but I'll definitely creep Bishop James Lang on Sarah's for sure.
Oh, he's so interesting.
Oh, well, thank you again for joining us. It was just nice, laid back, super informative.
And yes, it's always a pleasure, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Let us know when you have the book out, and if you have any more interesting stories you want to share.
Yes, for sure.
Is it okay to just read 2 comments? Because I haven't been able to talk back because my phone died. No. Zachman wrote, "Fantastic show tonight. Much love to you, Elliott, and wishing you all the best in everything you do. Have a good night, my friends, and see you all next week." Wayne Mallows writes, "Great show. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences with us." Thank you both, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Those very kind comments.
So thank you. And like I said, let me know when the book is up and running, and if there's any stories you can share, maybe we could do it again.
Yes, for sure.
The new year now, because we're booking into the new year.
Yes. Oh, I bet. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when it's out, I'll definitely let you guys know. I'll try and send you guys both a copy there. I'll get your addresses from you later.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. All right. Take care of yourself and behave out there on the East Coast. Batten down the hatches for that storm.
I will. I'll keep telling Sarah it's good for the grass and good for her well. So let it
I know. I keep saying, I'm in the country. I say the same thing.
Yeah. So let it pour.
No, let it go. Right. I'm done. Water wings. All right. Thank you, Elliott.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Elliott. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, everyone, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment here on the Outer Realm. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to our special guest, Elliott Van Dusen. Thank you to Joe Montaldo. Humongous thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring tonight's show. Please remember to stop by our YouTube channels on International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio. Head on over to Facebook and Instagram. Find us on The Outer Realm. Contact us on the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. The Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. Next week, tune in. We welcome 2 more amazing guests. Wednesday night, we welcome back Miss Vicki Monroe. So you guys are going to love her. She's just a sweetie. We just kind of ran out of time, and she's very informative lady. You guys will just adore her as we do. Thursday night welcomes back again Utu Witch Doctor and new to the show Kat Thagard. And of course, they're going to be discussing witches. So, and the big news, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, is head on over to www.podcastawards.com. Again, podcastawards.com. Find us, The Outer Realm, under social and culture category. Kindly cast your vote for us. Thank you. And head on over and look for our peers. which are Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast under Education, Storyteller, and Drama category, The Centralist under the News category, Science and Beyond under the Science category, and our friends over at Chasing Prophecy under Spirituality and Religion. So there's a whole bunch of us out there, so go have a good look. In the meantime, don't forget about Joe and I on the Gray Zone Uncensored this Saturday, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 to 8 p.m. Oh, no, there's Central. Sorry, 6 to 8 is Eastern. God, get it right. I'm tired. Anyway, Amelia and I thank you guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Night.